When they're 7 months old and a year, you can usually tell the dogs have got heart, got the right kind of stride, the way their tail's set, and how good their nose is.
That's the game. That's the fun of it, because when you finally get him and they're going east and you're able to get that dog and send him out and he looks beautiful running across that prairie, that's it. That's the game, and that's what you're looking for.
So we're looking at, as Kenton talks about, looking for the Michael Jordan to be able to be competitive at this game. He went out there, he's got a really strong nose and found a bunch of birds today, but because his gait is wrong in his run, it's not going to translate over from what we do on the gun dog side, where he will be extremely successful.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of GDIY. Joined by a number of guests. We have Kenton Bryant, Dave Stovall. Did I say that right? Stover. Golly, me and names, they don't mix. And then Will Dunn. I got that right?
That's right.
So the one guy I knew before this trip, I got the name wrong.
That's right.
We've been out here. It's another first for me, getting on the back of a horse. I'm not really a horse guy, but I got to finally experience what it was like chasing some bird dogs on horseback. And I don't think that we really need to tell the listener, like, just the tradition of that. I mean, this has been going on for well over 100 years, well over a century, that somebody had the idea to chase bird dogs with horses. But I had to see it for myself. And Kenton, you invited me out here while I was on the way out west to go hunting anyway, and so I appreciate the invite. But cool. I'm excited to talk to you guys and what it is about the tradition of horseback trials that appeals to you guys and the value that it can still offer somebody in the space. But Kenton, go ahead, introduce yourself, give everybody like a top-level introduction of yourself, and then we'll kind of go around the proverbial table, if you will.
Yeah, my name is Kenton Bryant. I'm from Glasgow, Kentucky. I was fortunate enough to be in the music business for a long time, and always had bird dogs growing up. And a few years back, I got invited to, kind of like you. Hey, you want to come run bird dogs on a horse? And it got in my blood. I just love it. And it, you go from seeing the dogs that we all hunt over, the gun dogs, and you start seeing, like we went today, you see those dogs that really ranging out, that are broke, that are finding those birds way out there, on that prairie. And it's just it gets in your blood, and I love it. And it's something that I'm always trying to bring new people like yourself, grow the sport, make somebody, hopefully show somebody what I see in it, because it's such a great thing. And I invited you out, had Stover out, and hopefully get some of these listeners interested in riding a horse and looking at a bird dog.
Dave, you're up.
Yeah. So David Stover, I own Faith and Point Bird Dogs, on the gun dog side of things for several years now, and newer, little different perspective than Kent and Will here, just because newer to the field trial and horseback side of things, trying to get into it. Recently retired from active duty Army, and Kent had me out last year. Will had me out last year, and to see this side of things, and was like, hey, I can combine things I really love, horses and bird dogs and hunting. And trying to transition from the gun dogs to the field trial side of things and kind of scratch the surface and see, what that's about. And it's because it is different in some aspects. It's been really interesting, and it's been a lot of fun. Right, it is. Anytime I can get on, like you said earlier, get on the back of a horse and go chase some bird dogs, and especially when you get into the hunting side of it, back to what love to do, the grassroots of all of this to begin with. Good dog on point, ride up, jump off the horse, shoot a bird, get back on, and keep riding. That's nothing better than that.
Yeah.
So
it's leveling out the playing ground, if you will. The dogs have 4 legs. It's only right that we have 4 legs to ride on.
Yeah.
Will, go ahead.
Well, I was born in western Kentucky. I grew up bird hunting and loved to watch the dogs as much as hunting birds. And, of course, the birds, there's numerous things that happen. The population diminished throughout Kentucky, the wild birds. And so loving the dogs, I started field trialing. And really, to me, it's a dog work. I'm not much of a horse guy. I ride a horse, but I just look at it as transportation. But and when I'm riding that horse, I'm watching the dog nonstop. and that's my passion, and that's where I'm at.
Mm. I don't think I was aware that you're from Western Kentucky originally, and I find it really interesting. Kenton, you live in Kentucky now. You were in Middle Tennessee. Dave, you're in Indiana, so not exactly the South, but still east of the Mississippi. Myself being Tennessee, and here we are in North Dakota, in bird country, riding horses, chasing dogs. It makes me curious about the people in bird country. Like, as y'all have been doing the trials, kind of on a just guesstimate of how many people travel to do this and how many people in the actual area still do it. Does that make sense?
Will's got that history. I mean, and I've learned so much from him and other guys but gosh, I mean, Will, tell them about the rail cars and everything. How people been coming, how long they've been coming here from.
Well, this goes back to John S. Gates, and he was actually in the movie Biscuit Eater, but they worked on plantations down in the South. And, back in as an honor to have the best bird dogs, these are Fortune 500 people back then or whatever, wanting the best birds and dogs. And they used to take a rail car all the way to Antler with trucks, horses, dogs, the whole 9 yards. Antler, North Dakota, and that's right at the Canadian border. And then they would go into Canada and train bird dogs all summer. And the history goes way back, and I think there's a place in the Hall of Fame of one of the cars they used to transport the bird dogs across these prairies. And there's a lot of history. The Bird Dog Museum is real close to you. I don't know if you've been.
I was there just a few weeks ago. I was going to say I was actually looking at the carriage or the caboose, whatever you want to call it, that you're just talking about.
So a lot of history, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I've always been told it's the second oldest organized sport in American history, next to horse racing. I won the national championship, and I think it's the 120th, and that would have been 2019.
And that was at Ames Plantation.
Because I was recently reading a book called Bird Dog Man about the establishment and the first original bird dog trials, and it was around 18. I think we looked it up again last
1896.
96. Okay, I want to say 92, but it was actually held at the fairgrounds of where I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee.
Wow.
And then it moved elsewhere. I think it was like in northern Mississippi there for a few years on and off. I think they skipped a few years, but then eventually it wound its way to Grand Junction and James. So again, this is steeped in tradition, but it's still, now I'm really intrigued the fact that we're all traveling from non-bird country to do this game. And I'm curious, while y'all have been into it, Will, this is a question for you again. Have you noticed as bird populations dwindle, wild bird opportunities, have you noticed the participation in these trials and games dwindle as well? Or have they kind of held on a little bit longer than maybe your typical like wild bird hunter that just lost out on their local birds?
This is probably my 14th year field trialing, but I used to go to them, watch them a few years before that. Then I started raising dogs, but we've lost so many grounds. Southern Illinois had a big trial. There's another big trial in Alabama, all-age trial that used to have the U.S. and the free-for-all national derby championship, like 3 champions. We've lost so many grounds. I mean, I could just keep naming them. Florida, we lost one of the biggest championships out there and outside of Lake City, Florida. We just keep losing grounds, and up here we're fortunate to have great landowners. We probably run on 3,000 or 4,000 acres a day, but we could run on 30,000. And these people are great people up here, and I really appreciate it. But the young people, it's tough. You got to ride a horse. You got to be able to train a dog, and it's expensive traveling out here.
Mm-hmm.
But if people got into it, I mean, they would fall in love with this sport, really. And
And you brought up barrier for entry, and that's a big thing, especially when we're talking about, it's not unique to this specific game, but I would say probably it's a little bit more obvious or on the nose, the challenge of growing this game, or at least stopping the bleeding, if you will, because the barrier for entry is high for the reasons you just alluded to, and I want to go deeper into that, but it's not foreign to all the other dog games, and that's why it brings it back to I just don't think that we fully grasp the wild bird hunting opportunities and the impact of getting people's foot in the door, getting them recognizing that they love to do it, getting their dogs built up, how much that was a window to the games and the sports such as this. And that's why I know I'm already harping on this, but again, you saying that you're from Kentucky, it really just kind of emphasized that for me to where I would think the access being one of them. Why do you think we lost access? Was it just aging out and people were passing it on to their kids and they were selling it, or did that decline in access follow the same trend downward on the wild bird access and opportunities?
Well, I mean, when the wild birds diminished, the people pretty much, there's, I mean, I run into people in Baker yesterday, and they go hunting, but they go hunting once a year, 4 or 5 days. So they keep a bird dog all year, and do not keep them in shape, and bring them out here. And, it's just not, when I was a kid, we hunted every Sunday after church, and any time we could. That's not available back home anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's that pool. I mean, we're all drawn from a pool of participants. I mean, I was so fortunate to grow up like Will, like you probably. We had bird dogs. I mean, for me to go bird hunting, I literally went out, grabbed a shotgun, walked out to the kennel, flipped the latch open, and walked out back, and I was hunting wild bobwhites on the farm. Still do it today, but I was unbelievably blessed and fortunate to have that opportunity. And, growing up, even, I'm 34, I could tell you in my high school, somebody's uncle, somebody's grandfather, or their dad probably had a bird dog. In my high school, you could say everybody knew what a bird dog was. But now, if you go to Barron County High School in Glasgow, Kentucky, and you asked how many of y'all have a bird dog, or your granddaddy, or your uncle, or something, I bet there's not 10. And, that participation, that pool, where they used to be, we're all trying to do the next thing, find that next mountain, which, bird hunters, they go, well, I like this dog. I want to go run him. It might be Nastra. It might be NAVDA. It might be this thing, but we're all looking for that next challenge. And I mean, there was a gentleman here that we saw at this trial today. He started out in NAVDA, went to Nastra. Then he's like, he went to an American Field trial American Field, which is what we do. And he's like, that's the game I want to play. So he's got into shooting dog, and then now he's running all age dogs. And that was a progression for me. I remember just going, man, this is cool. But I knew bird dogs. I mean, I'd grown and hunted, but having that.
So you didn't have to establish the love. You just had to fill the void that was now missing.
Yes. And the thing that I always tell everybody, having grown up probably at the end of being able to hunt like a 5, 6, 10 covey of wild birds, if 3 or 4 days a week or whatever. I grew up at the end of that. But, you think about that season. You got November to February for most people. And so if you're hunting 2 days a week, so if 4 weeks, you're hunting 8 times a month, times 4 months, do the math. You're really not hunting that much. Mm-hmm. Most people that are doing that aren't roading their dogs. They're not getting their dogs and shit, but just because it's a hobby. When you get to field trialing, I used to be a scratch golfer. I'm not a scratch golfer. I run bird dogs, but the beauty of field trialing is I can't wait for July hot to end, because we're going to be coming up north and having the opportunity, like somebody like Will that can mentor and take you up north and show you the prairie, or just, you figure it out on yourself. There's all kinds of grasslands amateurs can train on. But field trial season started for us beginning of August. We'll run dogs and be running field trials until the end of April. You got May, June, July, I'm fly fishing, then we're back field trialing again.
Yeah.
And it's a lifestyle. And it took that hobby we all loved growing up, and it made it a lifestyle, and it's an identity. I mean, I think anybody out here, Will included, I mean, Will's done well in the car business, and his logo is bird dog. You know what I mean? It's an identity. It's a thing that we can turn into a lifestyle. And my daughter was up here last year and riding horses and on the prairie, and it's just it's a thing that I think it harkens back to what it used to be when our grandfathers and everybody would make the big cast. I mean, my great uncle, they would get done with tobacco and they would tear out for a month and a half bird hunting. They would start in Kentucky, go to Illinois, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas. I mean, it'd be gone a month bird hunting. And they were just meat dog bird hunters, but they loved it. Nobody does that anymore. Yes, there are people that do it, but there's not those big groups of people that just bird hunt. You don't have access like you used to either. But I think our job as field trialers now is to go, hey man, Nick, you want to come see this? This is super cool. You want to come see what we're doing, and maybe get you into it, because there's a lot of guys out there, I told you earlier, that are buying them $130,000 Skeeter bass boats and the G-Limus fishing rods and the Shimano reels and that stuff's expensive now. So I know the cost of entry is high, but you buy a Malibu bass boat and wakeboard.
We spending money for a hobby no matter what it is. I mean, golf's not cheap either. If you start
country club membership, $50,000.
I was about to say, if you join a country club, I mean, even just paying city greens, like, it adds up over time. And
yes,
then you talk about the high cost of entry, and Dave, I think this is a great question for you. As you had an affinity for bird dogs, clearly. You also had the affinity for horses. So this is obviously a nice mix, but you being brand new to this, what's it been like from your perspective, putting your foot in the door to where you have an interest and love for both of them? But we've spoken numerous times now about being honest and realistic about that high barrier for entry, just getting started, coming to check it out.
I mean, it is still incredibly difficult. I mean, we've got 4 horses at the house, got a horse trailer, got the means to come and go. I've got a slew of bird dogs. But still, I mean, you're looking at, pulling all that out here. I mean, you're looking just to come out here for summer camp. Financially, I mean, fuel isn't cheap, right? So you're looking at all that, bringing the feed along to come out. So just the normal logistical stuff that you're looking at. And then entry fees for a lot of these, for the ones that I've looked at, the trial that's going on here now, entry fees for the braces are not cheap. So those are limiting factors for a lot of people, for me starting into it or looking to start into it. And then the other factor is too, that can't be ignored, is the difference in the dogs, right? My dogs, we test in AKC and NABDA, very proficient. We have been blessed to be very successful in those endeavors. But, I've got a string out here of dogs that we have placed titles on in both of those organizations, but we come out here and they would not do well. They would not be able to compete with these dogs. So if you're going to get into it, now your average dog that you hunt with and you kill birds with you're not going to be able to come out here and compete. You're going to lose a lot of money on entry fees, for my opinion, and I think Kenton and I have had this conversation a bunch. So now you're looking at getting either, spending a lot of time training your dog to push further and to do well at this game, or get you a dog that is ready to go at this game.
And I think it's important what you just described, Will, is kind of mentoring you, take, kind of somebody to guide you to where if you do have that dog that while you enjoy it, maybe just can't compete, you can come out here and run. At the end of the day, it's still just bird dogs going to find birds at the end of the day.
Yes.
We ran your dogs with Kenton's dogs this morning.
Yes.
And your dog Preacher found the bulk of the birds on the second run, right? All dogs found birds, but to your point, if it's a trial, he's not, it is what it is.
And to speak on that dog in general, right? That dog spent a month here on the prairie at a different camp with a pro trainer. We were looking, that dog was out of our breeding, out of our program, had high hopes that would be our dog to start our field trial stuff with. And it's not looking like he's going to be the one because his gait is wrong. right? So we're looking at, as Kenton talks about, looking for the Michael Jordan to be able to be competitive at this game, right? He went out there, he's got a really strong nose and found a bunch of birds today, but because his gait is wrong in his run, it's not going to translate over from what we do on the gun dog side, where he will be extremely successful to being successful on this side of things.
And that's where I was headed with finding the right mentor, guidance, because if you do want to come in here, you just said the word competition. You want to be able to compete, and this is a competition. Nobody's going to drive this far to not win. And so if you're going to do this, it does take a different caliber of dog, a different type of dog. But so far, there's no shortage of recommendations on where to go get that type of dog or which breeders to look at. Like you guys are, hey, you want to be competitive, go talk to this guy, this guy, this guy. Like I've heard the same names 3 or 4 or 5 times. And I want to get into that. Like what is the difference? Like what makes a dog competitive in this game?
It's all breeding. I mean, I'd say 90% of it, and then it's personal training. It takes. This is not go out and play with your dog 10 minutes a day. It's a lot of hard work.
Conditioning alone takes longer than that.
Right.
Will, explain what you're looking for in a young dog, because a lot of these listeners they've never seen a jack. Will's dog, tried and true.
Well, I mean, Stover, is that what you called it?
Yeah.
Stover touched on it. When between their 7-month-old and a year, you can usually tell the dogs that got heart, they got the right kind of stride, the way their tail's set, and how good their nose is. And the all age, which is the top of the top, running bird dogs, the book says do not cover the same territory twice. So you go out, you're not going back and forth. You're going, and use superior nose power and sense, and find the game, and in short terms, that's pretty much the book from 1900 or whatever that was written, and so you're looking for that dog, and he's keying off you, keying off the horses, and there's another thing. When you want a dog come to you, do you blow the whistle?
Yeah.
Okay. When we blow the whistle, we want a dog
go away from you.
We're doing the
let's
exact
get the hell
opposite.
out of here, Whistle.
Yeah, let's go. And
I don't want to.
And if you watch today, some of the handlers, when that dog come in after they water him, they start blowing the whistle. They want him out there hunting. It's just differences, and I ain't saying ours is right. I mean, what works for whomever works for whomever, but we try to stay consistent, because if my dog's trained to come in with a whistle and Kenton's and he's blowing the whistle for his to go,
that's you're in the field with multiple handlers, and if they're blowing and yours is trained to come back to you.
So it's consistent, but there's difference in training. It's like Mr. Stover was telling us or talking the other night. He gets dogs, and the first thing people want to do is teach them sit, and so he's trying to teach them whoa, and they're sitting. So, he's got to overcome that in the training field. And so there's a lot of variances between the different organizations. But
Will, explaining this is something, because I've heard this before. Well, field trial dogs are just a bunch of runoff dogs. They ain't really finding any birds. And tell them, like, a dog like, again, I'm just going to toot your horn, but Will's dog, Jack, Dunn's tried and true, 13-time open all-age champion, and one in the prairies, one in the piney woods, one in the Midwest, on all birds. Won the International Pheasant Championship. I mean, one of the greatest dogs probably of all time. I mean, as far as finding birds. But people say, oh, it's just a field trial. He's not a good bird dog. Tell them about what like a great performance Jack would go do. I mean, in an hour brace, how many finds would Jack have?
I mean, in wild birds, 3 to 6. It could be more depending on the time of the day, but they're judging on race and class and a lot of other things. I mean, you and I could. I mean, it's a field trial bird dog that runs out of sight, and that's another thing. He's out of sight. Yeah. You're worried. Well, whatever this and that. If he don't check in, most of those dogs will check in. If they don't check in, we better be looking on point. He's pointed somewhere, and you know these dogs will stay pointed. Ideally, I mean, we've lost dogs, been gone 20 minutes is kind of the rule, an hour stay, get the tracker, go back, and we rode right by him, pointed. He's still standing there.
Because you don't get a tracker in our trials. You know, there's
When you get a tracker,
you're done.
you're done.
That dog has to be able to get out there and run that front, as he said, never cover the same ground, use a superior nose, but there's no tracker. I mean, you saw today, some of those dogs are going down in those ditches, and I was scouting. I was looking for the dog. We didn't know where he was. I mean, for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I mean, I'm riding that horse looking like, where the hell is this dog? But that's the game. That's the fun of it, because when you finally get him and they're going east and you're able to get that dog and send him out and he looks beautiful running across that prairie, that's it. That's the game. And that's what you're looking for. And, you know, it's that superior independence to be able to go, all right, I'm going to be on the edge of chaos the whole time.
And believe it or not, those traits will start shining through, you know, from a puppy to a year old. And they change a little bit, but those traits, and that's what you're looking for. If you got a dog coming down from the side, he's got water, he's fine. And he sees that horse, you don't want him coming to you. You want him to see that horse, which way he's going, and shoot to the front. And that's a trait. It's something you put in.
And it's supposed to be the same way whether you're foot walking or on a horse. The dog is supposed to, you know, checking in if they need water. Sure, okay, fine. But the yo-yo, it's wasted energy, it's wasted time. They're not supposed to come all the way back to you to give you a high five just to go back out in the field, right? And so we're talking about that to where, you know, like the dog keys in on the horse head. I'm like, I'm sure it does, but I also still think that it just keys in on the handler in general, because you're facing the same direction the horse head is, and they're going to do that whether you have a horse or not. They're supposed to, genetically speaking. Yeah. But speaking of genetics, you said something that's really interesting, to where like 90% of it is genetics. And it was funny at dinner last night. The world I come from is completely different, and just my perspective, to where I come from a very heavy dog training and dog development state of mind, to where genetics is important, but I would say in this game, in this realm, you guys put exponentially more emphasis on genetics than what I typically do when it comes to picking it out, to where y'all are after the Michael Jordan in every litter, and if y'all don't get it, y'all are moving on to the next litter. And I think it's important to say that it's not really, to your point, a right or wrong thing. It's just, I think, kind of how the worlds have diverged in the bird dog world, to where I see a bird dog, I'm like, we can make a bird dog out of it. You guys see puppies and you're like, is it a bird dog or is it not?
Coming from my background in the training that we do with gun dogs, I share with you, and that's for me coming into it, and for anyone else who's looking to come into it, or may in the future, finding mentors like I have with Will and Kenton or Dan back here that are teaching me these things. Like, I had no idea. I'm like you, we have a litter of pups. I can make them into gun dogs. I can teach them. I can develop them. Give me enough time. We can fix any problems. We can bring them through that, right? But we start looking at what they're doing as far as teaching me about, hey, that stride, that gait, that this, that, at that early age it's been mind-blowing over the last few years, learning and just asking questions. And right now, I think mentorship is one of the biggest things that for someone coming into it, because there is so much. I'm like you, that hey, we can make this make this dog great, right? But it's
like the first pointer Kenton dropped this morning, to where he's like, this is a nice dog. So this dog is gonna make somebody very happy. Yeah. This is not my dog. Doesn't have it, and it's okay. But you're like, it's gonna make somebody happy.
And he ran the front. I mean, Jay, he turned every single, and he looked nice out there. But remember, I turned his brothers loose, and we were like,
night and day.
Night and day. And it's just, we can make any of them a bird dog.
Yeah.
I mean, we can make a poodle run an edge. You know what I mean? Like, nothing wrong with the poodle people. You know what I mean? But, and that's where really it gets down to that minutia of, especially getting somebody like Will that's seen a bunch of dogs. And I asked, I mean, we turned some young dogs loose when he got here the other day. I said, what do you think about their gait? What do you think about their tail set? Because I want to see what he thinks about it with a better eye. You know, somebody that's really seen 1,000 dogs more than I have. What do you like about that? What are those little things that are going to make you ride higher in that seat and go, wow, look at that dog? You know, is it a little more crack in his tail? Is it that gait? Does he have a long stride? You know, is he, you know, and things Will knows more about that, and I'm still learning. And it's like, is the short stride dog going to get, you know, does he get more tired? Is a long stride dog get more tired? You know, if they're running 3 hours in Ames with it 18 degrees, those dogs are got to have that right gait. And how's his nose? You know, is he going, when he goes on point, is he going to get low on the front end? You know, that happens a lot. Gun hunting, if you're walking, as long as he's standing there. But, you know, you get some of these great dogs, you know, you see pictures of Tried and True, or you look at, you know, any of these Hall of Fame, or just great field trial dogs, man, you ride around that corner, he's just blown up, just sitting there like a church steeple. And that's it. That's a breed on dog.
And I think the game itself, the culture itself, affords you guys the luxury of being that specific on this, because you guys don't worry about a lot of other stuff. It's like y'all have the one thing, the field, the range, how they run, like y'all can really focus in on that one aspect of these dogs, to where it's like if you go into the versatile dog, there's a lot more criteria for breeders to consider, from, you know, the retrieve drive to coats to, you know, obedience and companionship. Not to say that these dogs are completely incapable of all that. It's not what I'm saying. But because y'all know what we're in this for and y'all are honest about it, it's like y'all can heavily critique those puppies to really try and hone in on exactly what you guys want.
And it's so difficult to get all the right-minded dog, the durability dog, the class of dog, and then the nose. The nose is important. I mean, if you took a bird out there and planted it with a good wind, and you marked off every yard, say, you walk that dog at 10-yard line, you know, just then 8, 9, the dog has fun. I mean, all these dogs got a different nose. Some of them might not smell that bird till he's 6 foot away. So having that nose and all the other abilities is really, really hard to come by in our sport. And when you get that, then you've got a good one. Just keep him healthy.
Yeah, and it's that's the thing. I mean, I remember first you're like, well, it can't be that hard. We're just getting one to run, you know, just find birds. But guy, you'll get one that'll like look beautiful on the ground and have a good nose, but he just wants to. He's a runoff. He just doesn't have that good mind, you know. Or he'll be great everywhere, but he could smell one, you know. Could smell one. It's like he's here, and you get on those wild birds like those sharp tails. I'm sure you got to stand off them, you know. And it's like, you knock birds, well, guess what? You're out of the field trial.
I mean, Kenton's point, you came out and he says, it can't be that hard. Just finding birds. Last summer, I told you last night, I came out here, Kenton saw it, the breakdown firsthand. I mean, I heard that dog ain't gonna make it, bud. I heard that so many times. 3 or 4 days in, I called my wife. I was like, hey, we're gonna need to sell this business. I said, I'm apparently terrible at this. And she had to call me off the ledge, and it's like, look, no, we have a long reference list of clients that are very happy. Our dogs are very successful at what we do. That is different. And it took her being able to pull me back down to reality of like, this is a different world. You train the dogs to do something completely different than this. They're not going to range as far as those dogs are out there. They're ranging where you train them to, where we keep them at, right? They're not used to the prairie. They're not used to running off of horseback all the time. They're not used to these things. But I thought I was going to come out here and these dogs were, hey, these dogs are titled AKC NAVTA. They're finding birds. They're steady. I thought I was going to go out here and knock it out of the park. And it was like, it was not that. and buddy over here, like I said, he was in my head rent-free, living just like, I was like, man, Beth, babe, we're selling it. I'm going to go work for somebody.
But I think if we're all being honest with each other, that's the average type of dog that the average person wants anyway. Whether it's what they actually want, or maybe it's just times have changed to where it's no longer an option, whether it's due to access and wild bird populations and whatnot. but it's still holding on to where if you do want to play this game and you do want to be competitive, you're on average, I'm not going to say none of them can come out here and compete, but if you just go and prize in NAVDA or you do an AKC hunt test, you're not going to be able to walk out here and be competitive.
No,
let alone win.
No, you get smoked. And the prairies, it's a great equalizer on a lot of dogs because you got this wind. I mean, you'll go watch these field trials. When you get 20-mile-an-hour wind, those dogs will not bore it. The good ones will. The good ones will bore through that wind and just go. But a lot of these dogs will start quartering that wind. They'll just go as far lateral as you can get.
I mean, my dogs do that.
Yeah.
They work a crosswind. If you work into the wind, from a hunting perspective, you're actually kind of losing ground that you can actually work effective ground. But when you're on horse and you're playing a game, that's different.
Yeah.
But they will not run into the wind very hard. They will quarter it, and they will literally use their nose and check off all that ground, and then they'll just quarter back around, and we do another lap crosswind, and then you can work your way back. But to your point, when you're out here,
you got to play the game. If you're going north, wind's coming out north, the good ones, you'll watch them, they'll make that, it's almost like a diagonal cast.
Yeah.
And they're still working it, and it's really interesting to see because they're working it through their head too, going, how can I still find birds boring through that wind? And, that's, again, you're looking for those little minutia that might separate Sam from Tim.
Yeah.
Okay, if Sam's boring through that wind, Sam's probably going to be a little better on the prairie. But we don't run into that very often in the East.
You're right.
You just don't.
We got too many trees.
Too many trees.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the dogs it takes to come out here, and again, the whole reason for the podcast, and we talked about it, is access. How can the guy that's listening to this go, I want to come play this game because I like doing it. I like bird dogs. I want to extend my season. Will has played at the top level, ran Ames, won at Ames, and Will's also field trialed on weekend field trials that everybody shows up at Percy Priest WMA in Nashville. They make one loop around. It's one course, planted birds, and you have a potluck lunch after. There is that game out for $50 entry fees. Those games are there. I mean, that's how I started. Yeah. I mean, you go play it, and then there's one course, two courses, and it's a very accessible thing. And there's more of those coming back. I mean, we're going to be doing more 30-minute trials, from what I've heard, where the guy that can't condition his dog for the hour-long brace, because he works, he just doesn't have time. But he can come. Most dogs can make it a 30-minute brace. And that game is out there. So I think that's what the main thing is. People need to know that you don't have to have an open all-age dog to go ride and compete in horseback field trials. You can find that amateur shooting dog that works for you, that might be a dog that just like Jay, like we ran Jay today. Jay might make somebody a wonderful amateur shooting dog that they can go run at their local field trial club on a Saturday for a 30-minute brace on planted birds and have a blast, because that's what you want to do with your time. And there's so many levels of the sport. I mean, there's tons of NBHA. I mean, golly, that's growing like crazy. It's people just don't want the horse,
Right.
And very similar game. But there's levels, and it's like horse racing. I mean, you've got the horses that run for the Triple Crown, but you also have $5,000 claimers at Santa Monica. You know what I mean? And
then you got the local Friday night
the
rodeo
local
show that people are doing.
Yeah, man.
$5 bets behind
There's
the
still
stalls.
horse racing. There's still horse racing, and that's what I think we need to get across is there is a wide range of this game, but you just got to find where you feel like competing. And for Will and what I'm trying to get to is that we're trying to run the Kentucky Derby, and it just takes a higher level of stock genetics.
So I'll touch on something of that. I had a friend of mine that referred a friend. He stayed the summer with me, and we were talking about how much ground a bird dog could cover in an hour and a half or an hour, and he was telling me this and that. I mean, a field trial bird dog, how much ground would you think he covers in an hour?
So basing it off of hunting, my dogs do 3 to 5 miles for every 1 mile of me. And if I'm taking my time at a hunting pace, it depends on the terrain and everything. Let's just call, for sake of math, what 1 mile an hour for me, just a leisurely stroll, that puts the dog at 5 miles. But y'all's game, I have to imagine it puts y'all over 20 miles if you're on horseback.
Well, I had a derby as year. I didn't know you could do this on the collar, by the way. So, but so he showed me this, and we went right up where we were at today, and counting 2 or 3 finds he had, stopping for that, watering him stopping to use the bathroom. We averaged like 18.6 miles in an hour.
I came close.
You come close, yeah. So that dog that we're breeding to, that's the kind of range, and if you took out the pee breaks and finding birds, flushing, then
Probably closer to 20.
Well,
well over 20.
and we talked about that briefly this morning, to where I'm not going to say all my dogs will do this, but 2 of which, I mean, y'all saw Quinn run the other day. We dropped her just for a stretch her legs run. I think if you put me on a horse, they'll cover that. My thought process doesn't go to physical capability on whether they can actually do it or not. My thought process comes, we just burn that dog in an hour and a half, to where I could have, if I'm on foot, hunt that dog for 2 to 3 to 4 hours effectively. And so it's like, no matter what, like my dogs, they get run daily. I'm not going to say that they run. Some of these guys are running an hour and a half every single day preparing for the hour brace. They don't run that much, but my dogs are in great shape. And if I go and put them out here, it's like their stamina is their stamina, their endurance is their endurance. And I just feel like they should match your pace. That's what we talk about in the field on foot. So in theory, if I hop on a horse, I haven't tried this, so take this with a grain of salt. In theory, I would think that they would span that. They may not hit that 20-mile mark, but they're gonna go a little bit further faster, just because my pace has quickened up on the horse.
And going back to when I was a kid hunting, and my mentor, he's 92 right now, and he still trains bird dogs, and arguably the best trainer. I mean, stats show him the best trainer as far as getting to the level we want. But
Farrell Miller.
And I said, Farrell, when I was a kid, we had these big-headed bird dogs, big bone, loggy, and they'd point with their tail out like this, and now, they want the tail at 12 o'clock. And we had that when I was a kid, but these dogs smell a bird from across the road over there, or win one and work into it. I said, they were unbelievable bird dogs. And I said, what happened to that bird dog? He said, we bred it out of them for class, endurance, speed. And we're like you. Me and my dad would hunt in the morning. We'd go in and give the dog a can of Vienna sausage and Twinkie and hunt that afternoon, but we was on foot. The birds, as the birds changed, and then they started going to more liberated type birds and pre-release birds, the dogs changed, and they changed for endurance class, and it's been a cycle, and a lot of even the hunting dogs you see, if you look back at the bloodlines, they're going to come from some type of field dog, trial dog.
I mean, my first bird dog came out of Snakefoot, LU Snakefoot. Hey, runoff.
Yeah.
But I remember, a local guy, he's a field trialer. I mean, he would call my dad, and he goes, hey, your boy want a dog, is a colt. The dog did make a field trial dog. He brought it over. Dog was named Bet. Black pointer, and she's about 2. And the first time I let her loose, I had my coveralls on, and I think I saw Bet at the next hill over. And I remember being like, gosh, damn, what have we done? But, Bet, she was an all-day dog. You tear out in the morning, she's going to make the big cast. But after that, she come in and she found birds. And, I wish I could remember what she actually was, her gait and all the things that I analyze now in a bird dog. But at that time, hey, I had a bird dog and a little 4x4, and we were bird hunting.
And I'm by no means a pedigree scholar. There's some guys that I swear they know the pedigree of their dogs better than they know their own family tree. Yeah. But you just mentioned Elhue, you just mentioned Miller. I would say, at least from through my lens, those are the two, like, if you talk English pointers or pointers. Let's not bastardize the English part of this. People are going to be familiar with Miller dogs and LHU dogs. What other breeds today? We saw a bunch of short hairs run because it's the short hair trial.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that if you really are trying to be that all-age open champion, the pointer's the way to go. Like to me, it seems like there's no other option. There are some good quality setters out there. There's trouble finding a good bitch setter to produce the caliber of dogs that you need with the right engine. But is that accurate to where, like, if you want to be competitive, you pretty much have to own a pointer?
I don't really think so. I think I mean Dan DeMonroe behind us and Richie and I've seen them run some all age type dogs. I think that could compete, with pointers. But maybe they train them a little different.
What do you guys see, like any Vizslas, any other type of setters, anything like that, or is that just pretty much the three main ones: pointer, setters, and short hairs?
I mean, you've got the big game, right? And it's open. I mean, shit, you can come run a Chihuahua if you feel like, if you can get qualified at Ames. But when the big money's down on the line, the best, I say the best for the game has proven itself. I've showed you a setter. I love that setter. I love what he does, but I didn't work him any different than I did a pointer. He just does what I like for the game, and it's fun. You setters, I mean, really, and if you look back at the Ames Plantation, which to me that's the national championship, that's the big game. When they're running for the big money, I mean, what's there? It's pointers, and there's been Shadow Oakbow, which he's in a lot of bloodlines we talked about, but never really threw much. You had Richie's dog, Dakota Mountain Sunrise. You had, Aaron's Hidden Shamrock, Aaron's Wild Atlantic Way, Yukon Cornelius. There's another one, a couple more setters. And there's only, I think, what was it Sam Houston that won he's a setter, won in the 70s. I don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure it's Sam Houston. But, no, it wasn't Sam Houston. It was anyways. I'll look it up. We'll make an amendment on the note. But a handful of setters.
Over the years, a handful compared to
3.
Yeah.
The pointer came along. The setter won a bunch between 1896 and the 50s. Then the pointer came along, and you had, we'll probably know the names, the Gateses, and developing those pointers. And, boy, they just took over. I mean, as George Hickok says, if you want to win, you got to play the game.
Yeah.
It's like setters are great. I love my setter, but
everybody wants a good setter. There's just not many out there.
There ain't many out there for our game. And again, when you start sorting through the dogs, you look.
So y'all are saying if somebody can crack the code on how to create the setters, there's a market for it.
Oh boy, you bring a good setter to a trial, and everybody's talking about it. But there's just not that many that work for our game. I told you there are a lot of setters, sickle tail. Well, nobody wants to breed to a sickle tail dog.
Define that for the listeners, because I even had to ask you. Yeah, clarify what that is.
That when that tail curls over that back like a pig, that's a sickle tail dog. That's obviously a genetic trait that's going to pass down. And in the conformation side of things that we're looking for in that perfect straight 12 o'clock tail, if you breed a dog and every one of them's curling and touching his ears, that's probably not a dog you want to breed. If the dog's got a big underbite, if the dog runs like a jackrabbit,
and that don't have a good nose. There's a lot of dogs that, there's many dogs out there that have a natural ability of finding birds. And, it's just a natural ability, but they aren't smelling them, and it's a disadvantage for them. But, they're pointing that bird from here to the box, where the other dogs are pointing them here to the side by side.
I was about to say 20 yards away.
Yeah.
And that's true in all
breeds.
All breeds, all games, all testing systems as you have. Yeah, you hear it all the time, like that dog's a bird finder, right? But I also think, to your point, like a lot of that is genetic on just how the dog stops away from it. But also, I think a lot of that is training error as well. Poor setups, not clear on what they're doing. They cause a lot of that crowding and pointing on top of it, to where if you come about it the correct way, quote unquote correct. I know it's a dangerous term in this world, but I think if your dog has the capability to find birds, they can figure out what cover to hit, the tree lines, and how to run that stuff. With proper setups, you can fix that. But again, it goes back to you guys are going after it so fast, so quick. Y'all don't have time to screw with that. Y'all need a dog that fits the mold that y'all are wanting, and then y'all get after it. And it's funny, like Kenton, since I've been here, you've had one speed, right? I told Dave earlier today, you're the Upland Ricky Bobby. Like you want you fast. Hurry up, catch up, get up here.
It's because running with him. Hey, he'll leave your ass. Tell him about Farrell.
I was yelling at the judge today. I was like, "Get up here!"
Well, tell and Will was mentored by Farrell Miller and for years, but Farrell is not known for lollygagging.
No, and he will leave you. The first time I come up here, he said, "Will, we're getting up at 3:30." I said, "Okay." Well, not before he got a shower and he put his pants on, this and that, and then he took them off and set them in the chair. Well, 3:30 alarm come off. He just rolled out, put his pants on, grabbed his shirt going down the stairs, and I'm over there digging through my luggage trying to find stuff.
He already had
He was gone.
Had the belt on, change in his pocket.
He'd already changed it. He put everything in his pants, so he just rolled out of bed, put his seat on. He's gone. I'm digging for my pants.
Yeah. I mean, and I laugh because I don't think about that because, when it's Will and I working, you're up, you throw your pants on, you drink a cup of coffee, and we're out getting horses.
And it's not a bad thing. It's just I'm trying to highlight the mentality of this to where, like, coming from, I'm just a wild bird hunter. I just love following a dog in the field and chasing birds. I'm not that gung-ho. Like, we talk about most people work too fast as it is, and we're trying to slow people down, and then you come out here. And I was telling Dave, I'm like, this dude's out to win every single race. Get up here, let's go. And I just thought it was hilarious. Like, this is a completely different mentality. Funny. Let's get after it. But
Richie, come sit down.
That's Richie Robertson for the people that didn't know.
Actually, Richie got in the Hall of Fame last year.
Yeah.
To get in the Bird Dog Hall of Fame, you've got to be 65 years old or deceased. Richie's still alive and well.
He's still pretty good.
But as far as a dog, it has to be deceased. So generally they put in, the idea is try to put in 2 people and 2 dogs per year into the Hall of Fame.
Is that at least 2 and 2 or just?
They try to. Now I've seen them put in 1 person and 2 dogs or vice versa. And people nominate the dogs, and the voting goes from there. But Richie's been around, and he's run short-hair setters. He's had the best setters. He's been,
Coal Mountain Sunrise.
He's got a dog they're trying to put in a pointer. They're trying to put in the Hall of Fame this year, Scooter. And
it's that breed-on dog. We talk about Tacoma Mountain Sunrise. Anybody with a setter, you go back far enough, somewhere there's probably going to be Tacoma Mountain Sunrise. Yeah.
But I'll go back to the breeding and the traits. And you might have saw it today. I saw it the 2 times we were. Kenton setter's got a super nose. And, I ain't saying that's everything because you can win with a shorter-nosed dog, but it sure helps. And like his dog will be pointed. And the year-old dogs that are trying to train are in front of him. You can tell when they smell a dog, though, and start moving toward it. They're running around. They never smelt the dog. His dog was pointing.
The bird.
The bird. And so you get all the attributes, and you got that good nose, then you got something. And then, like he said earlier, you want them dogs pointing a good ways away because if they crowd them wild birds, they're gone, especially out here on the prairie.
Yeah.
And we were lucky today on the prairie. We saw the main three species: Hungarian partridge. We saw pheasants, quite a few pheasants, and of course sharp-tail.
The chickens.
Sharp-tail grouse, we call them chickens here, and Hungarian partridge we call Huns, and pheasants we call on the plate, hopefully.
Yeah.
Disco chickens.
Yeah, that's a chicken.
I want to talk. You touched on it at the very start of this. Something that's helps this stand apart from everything else is the addition to the horse, and you touched on it to where there's just something romantic about a horse on a prairie.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we talked about it, Dave, like we were just walking, and I'm not a horse guy. I told you that when you invited me. I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm not a horse guy.
I'd talk you into it.
And you're like, man, I got a bulletproof horse. I'm like, all right, it'll be an experience. Let's do it. And I'm out there, and by the end of the day, I'm looking around, and I'm just like, I'm just trying to imagine, not that there's a whole bunch of roads or infrastructure or anything out here as it is. So, like, you can still kind of teleport back in time but really start looking around and be like, man, what if that silo or that barn wasn't there? Like back in the day, back when the Indians rolled these hills, and I'm sitting here riding a horse following a point dog. It was pretty freaking cool, right? Like, it did make me stop, and as me not being a horse guy, still be like, I could get used to this. I could go hunting on this. I'm not going to say that I would like go full on into the competition, but I could see walking these prairies behind a dog and hunt from it. That would be pretty sweet. Talk to me about the horse, and anybody can kind of jump in on this. Talk to us about like the type of horse that it takes to do this. Like, do you need a certain caliber of horse, or can you really just go pick up the give me horse on Craigslist and come out here and play the game?
Ask Stover what it's like to bring a thoroughbred up.
Okay, yeah. So, hey, thoroughbreds out. Hey, that joker was it was a little rough on the back, and the problem is that the speed at which the Ricky Bobby, right? He likes to move. They do. We work the dogs a lot faster here, keeping them moving forward, right? We talked about it earlier. Is for a non-gaited horse, it's rough. It's between a canter and a walk for him, and so you've got to get him into this slow. It'll beat you up, and it did. But we spent enough time with mine. Their gun broke, just like they're not sensitive to the guns. They're not sensitive to the dogs. They're not sensitive to the birds flushing. So once we spent the first several days, week, they ran a field trial. We spent some time working dogs on the prairie, and then season came in out here last year, and we were hunting off of him. And there was Kenton missed it, but I forget, he had left, I think, my last day out. And I was like, hey, we had birds coming up, dogs had lost their minds, and I started taking shots off of him, right? And so you can't just bring any horse out, but the gaited horses, I got 2 out here with me right now because they are a whole lot easier on my old back, and they're a lot smoother, just a better fit for this. And I think probably about every horse out here right now, I'd argue, is probably some sort of gaited horse. Probably majority of them are
every single one of them. Tennessee Walkers, Spotted Saddle Horse, or Rocky Mountain, or everyone's.
Well, and the endurance is another thing. Of course, thoroughbreds made to run, but we cover in our race roughly 5 miles. So we're covering 15 miles in the morning, 15 miles in the afternoon, and those horses are made to walk. And we have people come field trials, quarter horses, you name it, and but these horses are made to cover country, and the walking horse best suits our sport. Now, if I was fox hunting, I want a thoroughbred. But as far as our sport, the Tennessee walking horse is the best. I haven't seen anything better.
There ain't. I mean, it's just what it is.
Yeah.
They hit that clip, that gait. You saw with speed we work dogs, and I've laughed at the Upland Ricky Bobby, and I'm gonna blame it on him, and because I laughed. I'm like, I'm so used to working at their speed, trying to keep up with them, and he, it's just this waterfall from somebody like Farrell who's 92 and hopping up with his pants on. But You work dogs fast out here.
Nick, that waterfall stops with him. I ain't about that life.
Yeah.
You saw it.
And lollygagging,
I'm like,
Stover, you lollygagging.
I ain't lollygagging. I'm like, hey, and I told him, I said, this is the pace that, like, I'm hunting. This is it. But it suits where, we've got gun dogs that, my dogs are gun dogs are trained for that. It suits their pace better. It gives them time to do what I've trained them to do, as opposed to pushing them forward when we're at the Ricky Bobby pace and what they work at, right? Because that's what their dogs have trained for. I'm having to stay on the dogs, to get up front, push, to keep them up front, because I'm moving so much faster than they're used to. And I work them off of horseback a lot at the house, but it's still just not at this pace,
it's
right?
Like a hunting pace.
Yes, yeah.
And it was funny, like one of the last times you look back and you're like, all right, hustle up, because me and Dave are in the back, chatty Cathy's just talking, whatever, jaw jacking, and you're like, hurry up, catch up. And I just looked at Dave. I'm like, all right, slingshot engage. But the horse, it was kind of interesting because, like, this wasn't my first time on a horse, but I'm not telling anybody I'm experienced on a horse by any means. And so I came out here and it's like, all right, I have confidence I can hold on to a saddle and reins, right? Yeah. That's about the extent that I had. And you guys kind of had to walk me through everything else. By the end of the day, I felt like I was kind of getting into a groove, getting used to the horse. And like, I was like, all right, it felt a little more natural. But to your point, if you're not used to the saddle, like, it will beat you up to where, like, I'm not going to lie, when we finally got back here to the property and me standing up and getting off the horse, that felt pretty good to get off the horse.
Well, you were learning how to, with a gaited horse, you got to collect their head. If not, as I told you, it's easier for them to pace, which is bouncy. That to collect that head means they're having to work. But that's when they ride that glass, So, Rock, and he knew you didn't know how to ride, so he was nosing out.
Oh, he's taking advantage.
He was taking advantage of you.
Yeah.
And, but, after 2 or 3 times, next time you get on a gaited horse, you'll already know that.
Yeah.
And I didn't grow up with horses. Will didn't grow up with horses. I mean, I didn't ride a horse really a few years back. Before I got on, I said, holy shit, what are we doing? And I ride a horse a lot now.
And so I am curious on this front, because, correct me if I'm wrong, you can run this trial, but you can request to walk it rather than ride a horse. Is that correct? Yeah. So if that is the case, if I do come out here and I'm brand new and I'm like, you know what, horses terrify me, I don't like horses, whatever, fill in the blank, I want to walk. How do we handle the Ricky Bobby pace if I'm not on horse and everybody else is?
Well, the judge is actually supposed to set the pace, and that has happened a few times in history, more than you think. But the judge sets the pace. But like today, I kept looking at my watch. I wanted to hit certain objectives at certain times, so we finished up at the right area. And a shooting dog stake, the pace is supposed to be a little smaller. The all-age stake a little bit faster. And a judge, when you get to a hill, a judge should hurry up the hill so he can stop when he gets to the top, and kind of wait on everybody. But, get up there where he can see the dogs, because he's judging those 2 dogs. And, the 2 judges are judging those dogs. And judging, I don't know if you saw it today. So you got one judge that's got one handler. Other judge got another handler. At the 30-minute mark, they switch trackers. They switch trackers, switch handlers. So that the second judge is judging the other dog for the last 30 minutes, So there's a lot to it, but a lot of it depends on the judge and how they're riding it. And I guess somebody walking, they could, but they need to be.
You better be in shape. You better bring your Brooks running shoes.
And I've seen some.
Well, you just said we cover 5-6 miles in a brace. So, like,
you run a 6 mile pace.
You're doing a 5 to 6 mile an hour pace the entire stretch of the. Yeah. I mean, that's hauling on foot.
And I'll say, if you called and you said, hey, Kenton, I'm coming to a trial. I want to come to a weekend amateur trial, a 30-minute thing. Or you called the local secretary or the president of the region, whatever, or the AFTCA club or whatever it is, said, I really want to come, but I don't have a horse. Is there somebody that could let me borrow a horse? You know, we're beggars can't be choosers, but somebody, if you said, hey, I'm not a good horseman, but I'd like to do it, and you give them a little bit of heads up, they will line you up a horse.
Yeah.
I mean, I got 2 over there. I mean, somebody like that'll have a rock, you know, that white horse you rode. Hey, man, here he is, and maybe not every weekend you could borrow one, but like if you wanted to go and said, hey, I'm saving up to buy a horse, or I want to try it and see how I like it, you reach out to some of these clubs and they will find you a horse to ride. When I only had one horse, hell, I borrowed a horse for the afternoon all the time. Hey, does anybody have, you know, Will or somebody, hey, do y'all have a horse I can borrow for the afternoon? Well, my black horse is really, he's tired. And there's always somebody, yeah, I've got a horse needs rode here, just grab him and go. The sport is for the most part unbelievably welcoming and excited to have new people come.
Yeah. And I mean, at first glance, I mean, you pull up and if you're just coming to check it out without any context or anything, you pull up and you got all these big trucks and horse trailers and horses and dogs chained up everywhere. I can see how it's intimidating to the first person, but it's like everything else I've talked on this podcast before. You can't be afraid to just walk up to people and be like, hey, I'm brand new and I know nothing.
I mean, it's happened to all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I told you a story that of a guy named Keith Wright. I told you Keith was a young guy, and he, a guy that Will and I know, Sean Derrick, said he saw this young kid with one bird dog, and he's like, can I help you? He said, I'm here to run a dog, but I didn't know I needed a horse. And people are walking around, horse, you know, it's like this. You show up with a dog to run, what are you going to do? And Sean gave him a horse and helped him and scouted his dog for him that day. And just an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid, 20 years down the road. I mean, how many touches? Keith ended up doing the touches line. Won national championship this past year. So you think if someone hadn't reached out and had a hand, there wouldn't have been Keith Wright and there wouldn't have been all those touches champions.
Right.
And
I want to touch on one of the greatest things about our sport to your listeners is any sporting event you go to, it's going to cost you money, you know, entry fee, or, you know, to walk through the door. This sport's free. I mean, if you want to come out and watch this sport, you know, if you need to borrow a horse, you got your own horse. You know, you can come out and ride in the gallery, and it don't cost you a dime.
Yeah.
You know, it's a free pass. And
I told Dave that earlier today, to where it's like if I was a horse person, not even a dog person, I could see how this would be enjoyable just for you have a gallery and group of people to go ride with. You got dogs. You're seeing. I mean, we saw.
There's a purpose of some sort.
Yeah, there's some sort of purpose. You're watching something,
right?
And then like throw a camera on. You can take some great pictures on stuff. I mean, it's like I could definitely see how even if you don't have a bird dog, but you're just a horse person, just coming out here and riding along, tagging along.
Right, and a lot of people don't know about it. You know, it's a hard sport to televise, so there's not TV. You know, people don't know about it. But maybe, you know, this type of stuff will get it out there, and people will, you know, figure out where the ads, and there's trials all over the United States, except Canada. I've never seen one. We've got trials in Japan that go under our sanctions. And throughout Canada, of course, COVID slowed Canada down quite a bit. But Japan in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s was one of the biggest exporter of bird dogs, and they still run competitions, weekly competitions.
It's like Region 20 or something. I'd have to look.
But going back to Farrell, and he probably provided most of those dogs over there. He could ship 2 dogs at a time, so it was him watching money. What he'd do is get 2 females pregnant. When they showed pregnancy, he'd ship 2 females, let them raise the pups. And they'd send him the money for how many pups he had. I mean, he had it down pat. And, I mean, he can tell you they flew people in from Japan to watch field trials. And we're very, very big into it. I think it's like us, slowed down quite a bit. You're probably friends with some of the Japanese guys on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, they follow and they like my
Yeah.
stuff. They're like, good job. But it's funny, and I've never seen them run, but I'm sure they have their own version of whatever breaking a dog. I mean, they have to.
So we have a national championship. It's only natural we go to a global champion.
Hey, yeah.
Once every 10 years or something. Something crazy.
Yeah, that's a long way to pack a horse.
At the Olympics.
Now, Will, I think the one thing that we've talked about a lot, Nick and I have, is developing these dogs, not training them, developing these dogs. And when you give the listeners some stuff that I mean, I feel like I've been watching and learning for the past couple of years, and when you're getting these dogs and flocking them and doing all these things, kind of give some tidbits of like what you're looking to do for 6-month-old puppy.
Well, I mean, first of all, you got to start at the beginning. And you and I looked at it this week, and there's 3 dogs, and we're just trying to help Mark work them. And they're all 3 out of the same litter. And one of the dogs belongs to one person. His friends owns the other 2. Well, the other 2 dogs hadn't even been humanized, walked or nothing. And these dogs are like 6, 7 months old now. Can't know their age. And the other one is like a rock star. And these are all the same breeding.
Same litter.
Same litter. And the guy that, had spent some time with his dog. And, you get a little wing, you got them out there 2 months old and this and that. And when they get 6, 7 months old, I start checking their noses. And you're kind of seeing their gait, but they'll change. Some of them will change that aren't as classy. When they start getting in like wild birds, they'll get a lot classier. It makes them it gets them excited. And just from ground zero, you've got to humanize them dogs. And be around them, walk them out, get them coming to. In our business, there's 2 things. I know how you guys run dogs. You got to teach them, many things. I mean, our main 2 things are come here and whoa. And that's, later as they teach them to heel, some of the other stuff. But they got to be steady at the wing and shot, not move at all. And till shot, and you go back and collar them. The dog's supposed to stand still. But it's a lot to training. And I look on the bad side, and of course, we're not pros, but I look at some of the dogs that are sent up, and they expect the dog to come back ready to go hunting or what have you. And they're so far behind that you haven't even taught them to come here,
That foundation,
you got to have a foundation.
Them puppies. And it's just, like we were talking, it's just, I don't care what you do as long as you're in front of the horse. And when I say, Tim, you turn that head. You can go 1,000 yards in there. And those puppies, they're older dogs now, but as long as you do that, as long as you're and if you want to point them, either point them or knock them.
You said that to your dog this morning.
You point them or knock them.
Exactly what I was about to say.
And that's something to learn from Will, and Will learn from Farrell. When
you're building that drive, and when you're building that love or hatred, depending on how you look at it for birds, just
point them or knock them.
The puppies can do no wrong, and especially out here, we've been running on wild birds all day. Yeah. They're not catching them.
No,
they're not.
No, and it's actually better for dogs when they're under a year old to knock those birds and get them excited and chase them, makes them work harder. And when you go to break them, we reel the dogs in, and when we break them, you're kind of breaking a little bit of the outlaw out of them as well. But you already know from the year before that, hey, this dog's going to run again. So you break them, they're coming in, you're like, hey, this dog's short, blah, blah, blah. But,
it's going to extend back out, though.
They automatically extend back out because you saw it last year.
Yeah. I tell everybody, especially when we talk stop to flush, that'll rein a dog in. It's going to look ugly while you do it, but just trust in the process. If you did everything up till then, the quote unquote correct way. There's that dangerous word again. If you've built that monster and that drive, by the time that you do flip the switch, it's going to rein in, but it will naturally go back out.
And I think people that are on their first bird dog or their second bird dog, or they come somewhere like this, or really even at home, and they're like, well, that dog's not pointing. He's not pointing. I mean, how long did Tim – I mean, Will worked a super nice dog all summer last year. How long did Tim – but it's overnight, the change.
It's and when they start pointing, that's what I was telling Kenton about a couple of his nice young dogs. I said, we ain't a week out to, start breaking that dog. I know we're early, but he's ready. The dog will tell you when he's ready to be broke. He starts pointing, and knowing your dog's a big thing, and that's what I was talking to Kenton about his dogs. I said, hey, we're gonna be breaking them dogs here pretty soon. Some of them need more. Knocking birds, chasing them, what have you. But
that just goes back to knowing your dog.
And it's a foundation too. Yeah. If your foundation is all right, you're knocking birds and going and building that fire. If you start breaking them and they start, they clam up or they start doing something, you know what you can do? They already know how to knock birds and go back out there. You can break them, let them come unwound, then bring them back in. Yeah. And that's the interesting part. But people are so afraid to put that knocking foundation,
Yeah.
that foundation, which you were like, oh my God, he's
everybody
he's
likes
putting
to see
them up.
the full sequence from day one on, and
but let them knock.
Trust the process, surrender to the process.
What do you say, Will? You got to find them to knock them.
You got to be able to find them to knock them. Everybody's got a different process and everybody's got a different way, whether it's hunting or whatever. But I think that breaking a dog real young, it takes some of the drive out of them of finding birds. And I don't know, it's just the way I've been taught. You play with a dog. I mean, you want to play with a dog with a wing on the end of the stick. Get wild birds when they get bigger. You test their nose. You start them out further, work them side to side, and start getting closer. Till they start getting wind. There's a lot of things you can do with a young dog, and we work a lot of young dogs with pigeons. And
tell them about the pole, Farrell's pigeon pole.
Okay.
How he calls them dogs in.
So a 5 foot, I cut off a rod and reel, 5 foot rod and reel, got a string on the end of the pigeon, and I've already played with these dogs with a pigeon out in the yard, on the chain or what have you, and these dogs are excited. So they got to go with a horse, right? And another thing, there's two things this pigeon pole, when you get on that horse. A, the dogs see a pigeon. They're going to go with you. Blow the whistle, send them. They all get out there. They're chasing each other. They're having fun. They're 6, 7 months old. They're running all over the place. You got dogs scattering in. You start yelling for them. Hold that pigeon in there. They'll come back in. And we kind of, ho, ho, and these dogs are coming in from every direction because they know that pigeon there, and they want to try to
that's
catch
your positive reinforcement.
And they want to try to catch this pigeon, but they're coming to a voice, not shocking them to come. And
it's all fun.
And that goes back to that good horse. You can take. I bought horses and they had 1,500 miles registered trail riding. You take them to a field trial, it's a totally different ball.
You're adding in dogs, a whole gallery, gunfire, birds.
By the way, if you have a horse, just a caveat to this thing, if you have a horse, do not get on him holding the pole of the pigeon for the first time, or you're going to get Western real quick. You might want to condition him to that old pigeon on that pole. But you get a horse like Rock that you were on today. I mean, I've got a video, and it just goes back to that foundation. Last year, Will and I had 6 dogs out, tried and true. His dog, how old's tried and true? Over
13.
10. Yeah, 13 years old. I have a pigeon pole. I have the video. Pigeon pole. Ho, 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 ho. Tried and true's jumping around like a puppy, and it's just, but that's that foundation was put on him in the first 6 months. Everything built off that. But you could still get it down to that foundation. Ho, 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 and get them dogs jumping and hitting on that horse. But it's to me, it's just common sense. It's like, okay, Everybody wants to be happy coming in. Nobody wants to get shocked coming in all the time. God damn. It's like, I'm going to get shocked. That hurts. But if I go in, I'm getting to see that pigeon. He's fun. I want to go with that guy.
Yeah.
And that's, again, there's a million ways to skin a cat in this, but you take somebody like Farrell and that's had, Richie that's had, what did Richie say today? I said, Richie, how many dogs have you broken over your life? 2,000?
Yeah.
After over 2,000 dogs, you start coming up with them tricks, and that you can do it this way, but if you do it with this pigeon, it's just a lot easier.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to debate or argue with experience like that, especially when it's so steeped in the foundation of the game that that it's applied to.
100%. And what works for these dogs, your NAVDA dog might not apply for them.
Yeah.
But some of these foundation things that Will does and Farrell, it's good. I truly believe that getting that pigeon pole for any young dog. I don't care if you're got a damn half poodle schnauzer. If you want to get him excited about it, like, that's a good thing to do. And there's some things that I think in the NAVDA world and the NASTRA world and the OB and stuff that a lot of amateurs, you don't see them very often heel on a horse. You do not do it. But I'll tell you, you get to a road crossing and a field trial, and Ike Todd. I remember Ike and I he was marshaling a field trial last year, and there's a specific course of West Tennessee that you cross. You get to like this chute, and then you cross a road, and then you go through like another chute. Well, if your dog's wild as hell, he can go up that road, down that road, back down another logging road, or he can go the right way. And he's like, oh, we're about to do the rodeo. And I was like, no. And my setter, I taught him to heel to the horse. Heel. He said, shit, that's pretty nice. You don't see very many amateurs doing that. Heeled him 400 yards through the woods. We waited for the judges to catch up, blew the whistle. He tears on out. How many times people have been screwed because they're waiting on the judges. The dog goes on, the dog gets lost. The dog runs down the road and he's at the post office, You know what I mean? But it's just things like that I think we could probably learn from is doing more of that. Doing more of some of that obedience stuff and sometimes making a better citizen.
Well, and I mean, when we talk about, the average person getting a dog now. They're in the house with them. They're with their family. They're with their kids. There are other pets, and so it is important that if you guys do hope to grow the sport, it's kind of like marketing 101 to everything. You have to go where the people are. You have to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you change the rules of the game and lose the tradition of how you guys do it. But if you do hope to appeal to the modern gun dog owner, we got to start implementing some of that stuff into it, I would say. As we start wrapping this up, Dave, I'm going to throw this your way. I throw at the end of every episode, I ask, what's something I should have asked that I didn't? What's something we should have discussed?
I don't know. I feel like since last night we had a bunch of things that we were going to talk about or mention.
Will's pulling out his
Yeah,
list.
Will's got the list.
Will he came in with an agenda.
Few ex-Army guys, and we're completely.
Yeah, I guess I'm the one.
Navy.
It's very odd to be the odd man out. You know what I mean?
The
I'm just an old songwriter. I went to school of hard knocks.
I hate abbreviating. I can't read what I abbreviated.
Different.
I think it says the end.
Whistle.
yeah.
Yeah. The end. Yeah. I mean, there's something you're about to chime in with something a minute ago, but I'm interested because this is your second trip out here. There's got to be something from a new person's perspective that has more experience than myself that you think's worth touching on.
Well, I think that it's something that we started talking about last night at dinner. Is interesting, and I'd like to hear kind of Will's. I mean, Kenton and I've talked about it a lot, but and then you were chiming in is the overlay of is we're looking to is they look to expand and build the sport of field trialing, right? You're going to have to reach out to the gun dog side of things because that side is growing in a lot of ways right now, right? That's where, like you said, the predominance of people are at. And where the overlay is there between, right? So when we started the business and started looking at the training, right, we are first and foremost hunters, bird hunters, right? So when we looked at what games or sports are we going to get into, right, it just they nested with AKC and Avid nest really well with hunting for us, right? It's the same where we're looking for the steadiness, we're looking for the retrieve, we're looking for these things. And then, but a lot of people, we talked about earlier, a lot of people see these field trial dogs and are like, oh, they're just run away. They range too far, but being able to, that discussion of, hey, that's not necessarily the case. It does apply to the hunting side of things and, the development on both, right? Because, Jack, we did hunt over Jack last summer.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I think Kenton has some, experience the number of these actual field trial dogs that you can take out and successfully hunt over.
It's very easy to bring a dog in closer to you and make him go out.
Yeah, it's hard to push a
log
Can't
chain.
push a rope.
Can't push a log chain.
No. But that's the thing. People ask, well, can you hunt over them? I mean, we talked about Richie Robertson. I mean, the wealth of knowledge, and he was talking last night. He and I were talking about, Richie, how'd you develop Tacoma Mountain Sunrise? How'd you develop Hicks Rising Sun and Riverton's Fonseca and Scooter? I mean, what I told you, dogs that change the breed. That's what they are. That's what the whole point of this whole deal is, dogs that try to change the breed. And he said, Kenton, we hunted the shit out of those dogs and foot hunt them. Richie said he hunted every one of those dogs. I brought up, a friend of mine, Sean Patrick, Derek. I mean, we were talking about gun hunting field trial dogs, and they had a dog. They have a plantation in Georgia, and Sean Patrick said his cousins were down, wanted to go hunting. They didn't have any meat dogs, just hunting dogs down. All they had were their field trial dogs because they're getting ready for the Continental, which is a massive field trial next week. So he laughed. He's like, all I had was red rum. I mean, big time all-age dog, big time prairie all-age dog. I'm talking get the hell out of here. He said, well, I cut red rum loose. He was 100 yards out there. We killed like 20 coveys. I shot at 20 coveys of birds in an hour and a half walk in front of red rum. And then the next week he went and won the Continental, in an all-age stake. So it's like, you can do it. These dogs will do it. I mean, Jack's inside. Jack now he lives on the sofa. That setter, I mean, you can make him a good sitter. People used to say, oh, you can't make those dogs. That setter over there will come in. He rode up here in the truck. They're not just kennel dogs. You can, if you want to put the time into them, but like you said, they're not family. These are dogs. These are you can't be letting them get away with everything. I mean, and I think when they're in the house, you open up the opportunity for more variable reinforcement, things of that nature. But also, I like a good citizen in the house. I really do. I like a dog that in the summer, that setter stayed a week and a half at the house just because we were redoing kennels. I said, screw it. I'm just going to bring him. He lived in the subdivision. I'd let him out, and he'd go take a piss and come inside and lay on the couch and eat pizza. That's what he did. And you can make these dogs, if you're a guy that only has one or two and he says, hey, I'm going to buy a really, really nice field trial dog that might be a started dog. If you spend the time, teach him to kennel, with positive reinforcement and do the whole thing that you and I were talking about earlier, you can make him a house dog. He is he going to be a dog that might go run the national? I don't know. But, there is a way to have your cake and eat it too and play the game we play and not just feel like you're buying a Ferrari with no steering wheel.
Right. And at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer in dogs are smarter than what we give them credit for, even though some people try and advertise how smart their dogs are, but then you'll watch their actions. They don't really treat them like they're very smart a lot of the time. But that being said, I think these dogs can adjust to whatever you want, given you do the right approach, you have the right patience, you have the right knowledge, so on and so forth. But I enjoyed it. It's one of those, you invited me. You had to twist my arm a little bit on the horse thing, and especially to steal away my prairie hunting time. It took it took a lot for me to commit
Oh, don't
to.
we'll put you on bucking one next time.
But I enjoyed it, man. It was fun. It was different. I'm glad I now have the experience of riding horseback on the prairies of North Dakota. Not everybody gets to say that on wild birds, on really high caliber dogs. It was a lot of fun. It was something different, and I would urge, like I do every time I try something new, is to encourage people, get outside of your echo chamber, get outside of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to be that person that shows up and raises their hand, like the guy you were talking about earlier. Like, I didn't even know I needed a horse at a horseback trial. Like, somebody nowadays might say that and somebody wants to take a shot at them, but it's much easier to say, no worries, borrow my horse, and then 20 years later he's one of the most renowned, winning
Big time breeder.
big time breeder in the game. So it just goes to show that you never know who's showing up. You never know what impact you can have on somebody. And I just encourage everybody, get outside. There's a whole world of dog stuff out there beyond what, don't lose the sight of what it is that you enjoy, but don't be afraid to try new things. And at the very least, it's going to give you a new perspective and respect for what it is that you do like to do if this isn't your game. But with all that, where does somebody go? Where do they find the trial, the dates, how to sign up? Where's the website? You kind of
UKC, American Field. So you Google UKC American Field. You're going to laugh. I have it bookmarked on my iPhone Safari. That way I can click it. You scroll down and have all the dates in the month. It's just a calendar, and you'll say, it's got on September 8th, there's 2 trials. So you'll click it, and it'll show you, hey, this is in Berea, Kentucky. You click it, and it'll have a little flyer that'll tell you whether it's an all-age stake or a cover dog stake, or it's a all-age shooting dog. A lot of the trials, like, it's not just an all-age stake or just a shooting dog. Like, they'll have like this. So we have Friday, Saturday, you're running shooting dog, and then Saturday afternoon and Sunday you're running all-age. And there's a derby too. Derbies are year to 2, so those dogs run specifically by themselves. And you'll have a derby in there, so usually it's Thursday through Sunday. You'll have a lot of these weekend trials, and you can plan ahead. They're months ahead. It's not like just show up. But again, if you don't know, there's always somebody's number at that bottom right corner on those UKC American Field. That's probably the club president. Just call him. Say, hey, I don't even want to run a dog. Can I just come watch? Can I ride in the dog wagon? I mean, you saw the dog wagon just side by side.
Yeah.
Can I ride in the dog wagon and hand out biscuits? But that might be the person that goes, all right, well, I like that.
Well, shoot, coming from, all of us, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee area, there's a whole lot of trail riding, horseback that goes on, right? You can test, that's some pretty tough trails back here that we just rode today. Hey, you get on your horse, go find, log on, get online, see where, go ride in the gallery. Hey, we can, instead of riding them same trails you ride all the time, take your horse, go find a field trial and just ride in the gallery and see what it's about.
Yeah.
I want to touch on one thing to your listeners again, trying to pep up the sport. And another thing that is so great about this sport is when you turn those dogs loose, you're on a level playing field. We've competed against Ted Turner's dogs, Tucker Johnson. He's heir to Johnson & Johnson. We're competing with people that own Fortune 500, but when we turn them dogs loose in this sport, you're on the same level, the playing field as your brace mate.
Your bank account number doesn't matter as much.
That's exactly. I mean, it costs money to play the sport, but you don't have to have billions to beat them.
And you can beat them now.
Now, I beat them, they beat me, but
that just means it's healthy competition right there.
And that is another thing about this sport. You're on that level playing field,
and the competition.
And if you work hard, you can get there.
Well, guys, I enjoyed it. You guys have fun the next few days running the dogs. I'm gonna head a little further west and pick up the shotgun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna retire my horseback riding career, at least for the remainder of the year. But I'm gonna go pick up the shotgun and see what trouble I can get into now.
Sounds good.
We appreciate you
Montana
coming
at the
out.
end of the week. I'll bring an extra horse. Get bored of walking.
You know, hey, reach out to me, and if I have phone service, we may have to work something.
There you go.
out. Yeah.
There you go.
All right.